Okay, this is a training on how our architecture on the 3GIS remote server, on the databases out there, how to load data into them, and how to publish a service from ArcMap from one of those databases. So, as you can see, these are the credentials to log into the 3GIS remote desktop. This is from the Fiber Planet server. In the future, you will probably be logging in directly from your computer once we get our on-premise set up. Okay, here we are on the 3GIS server. You can always tell you're there because you see this information in the top right of the desktop background. The general architecture of the files on here is if you go to the Tilson Share, Tilson Draco Z drive. This is everything that we use for 3GIS. Data is a general repository for data about your project. Feel free to make a new folder in here if you have a brand new project. For example, we just made the Miami folder in here. A lot of this can be removed at some point. Point out there's also the street map premium data in here. So if there's a data set that we use, we could probably store it in here before we'd bring it into the 3GIS database. Plot templates is where we store the templates for the maps that we generate from 3GIS. So for example, First Light, we spent a lot of time on these base maps, which when you hit plot from 3GIS, it goes out to here, it pulls open that MXD and it prints that map. And any changes you make in this MXD will show up on that print. And not sure if this is, so this is a relatively updated one, and we could have another training on this, which we won't do right now. Map services is the other really important one, where all of the MXDs that we publish from are stored. And you can see they all start with Tilson, but then, for example, SFO LLD is the San Francisco low-level design. That's what LLD stands for. The only one that doesn't have an LLD after it that is an LLD is Atlanta, because we made it before we came up with that. These feature services are places where we publish REST endpoints that can be edited. And again, all this is going to change when we go on-premise, so I won't spend too much time on it. The other important thing here is there's a folder for the SDE connections, which brings you into your, these are just connector files for your database. So, John, did you put up the utility data that we were looking at somewhere?
In there, no, I just left it on my desktop.
Can you copy it to the data folder somewhere on the, oh wait, you can't get on.
Throw it on Fiber Planet?
Yeah, if you put it on Fiber Planet, I can grab it. I think you already did, actually. If you just put it on this Fiber Planet Storage E drive on there, then I can grab it. So I will continue while you do that. So if you want to load data into one of these databases, of course, you can do it from a few places. Oh, John, I have it right here. Beautiful. Because you were working on my login.
Yeah.
Okay, great. So we got this data for Atlanta. It's a water main data from a local county, I think. Basically, we're going to load them all into 3GIS.
Did Dan just send you that? Is that for Henry County?
Yes, from James. And it's
From
like,
Jim?
yeah.
Yeah. Oh.
Are you, did you get that too?
Dan just sent me an email this morning about it.
Dan Morgan?
The other
Morgan.
Means.
Oh, Means. Oh, sure. Yeah,
Cool.
so this is it. I think you're good.
Oh, perfect.
Yeah, well, here we go. So when you load a layer into 3GIS, is really, there's a couple of things to know. So first thing is where we put stuff. So basically, if you go, first of all, when you first come into ArcMap, you're going to want to make a connection to the SDE connections folder. So you just right click on folder connections, connect to folder, go down to your Z drive and go into the map services folder and click on SD connections and hit OK. That will give you a link to the SD databases, which is what you're going to use most. So once you're in there, you can go into the, ooh, we have a Miami LLD database. I wonder if, should I risk this? Oh, no, it's not for Miami, it's for Atlanta. Jeez, what am I doing? Okay, so if you double click on one of these, you'll get the drop down menu, and then you can go in here. And then within these databases, they all are set up in a similar way, and they're set up like this for 3GIS. We don't use, at this point, we don't use land-based plotting. You can ignore relationship classes. You can ignore schematics. Redlining is something we might use, which is those redlining layers in 3GIS. They're in there. Yep. Salt Lake uses that. The telecom data set is where all of the telco kind of stuff lives, right? So there's a lot of stuff that is just made by 3GIS that 3GIS needs. For example, fiber cable, fiber equipment. These are all things that 3GIS requires and it needs to stay. That's named the same. Needs to stay in the telecom data set. And what we do is we just load in data into that data set as well. So a lot of this is our stuff, like SB sites, Super Bowl sites for Atlanta, Pulse Fulcrum. That's from us, and we load data into that. So there's a whole bunch of other stuff in here. So we're just going to load this water main data into the telecom data set, and we're going to call it something like util _ Henry water mains, like for utilities. So if there's ask somebody if there already is a naming convention. If there's not, make one that other people will see and follow, basically, at this point. It'd be great to document this at some point. What I'm going to do is I'm going to right-click on that feature data set, and I'm going to say import. And this is really the stuff you guys might not know. And I always use multiple, feature class multiple, because it's a simpler interface. If you do it within ArcMap, you can just drag in your layer that you want to bring. And the most important thing to remember, this is a hard fought, or lesson that was hard learned. You go to this environments button down here, and then you go to M values, and you change this to disabled. We're just going to disable M values and Z values. So Z values, you go to disable. Now, I honestly don't know exactly. M values are measurement values that are used for like network data sets, and Z values are vertical values. So 3GIS just can't handle data even having those at all. So you have to, in this conversion, you say we're not gonna even acknowledge that those exist, and we're gonna do the conversion. Now, the one thing I forgot to do, if you do it this way, you can actually change the layered name in your table of contents. This is a pretty easy way to do this. And you can say, what I was saying, util Henry water. Or maybe util and then water and then Henry County. So then when I do this, right click, import multiple, I can just drag that over, and it will be named that when it gets there. If it's in a group, be careful. It will take the group name with it. And then I'm going to disable M. So Jen, you can see you're going to do a lot of this, I think. And maybe let's just come up with a plan, and we can talk it over real quick before you start just loading stuff in.
Yeah, I think get all the layers that she's found. We can easily take a look. See
Yeah.
what should go in existing layers, or
Yeah, just to make sure everybody knows, like, kind of, and just like, so a lot of the stuff we've done in the past is like maybe not the most obvious, or you wouldn't guess that. Most of the stuff is like, actually, so that'll take a second. Once that's done, so usually what I'll do at this point is I'll be like, okay, so my data's loading in for Atlanta, so now we're gonna have to put this data into the web service for 3GIS. So we're going to go into the map services folder, and we're going to open the Tilson ATL folder, and we're going to open the latest Tilson ATL with no date on it. The copies with dates, we need to make sure that you save, basically every time you open Tilson ATL, save a copy as the date that it is today, because you never know when you have to roll back to the previous version of this, and it's hard to remember sometimes all the things that you changed in an MXD. So like literally you could be lost and not know how to fix things, which is not fun. So I'm going to open this. I'm going to save a copy as underscore after it, and then I'm going to say month 06, day 12, year 2018. And that's, if you do it that way, you'll be able to sort by month. I guess maybe the year should go first, yeah. Does it matter? I don't know. So then I'm going to save that in the map services, Tilson ATL folder. And again, that was just saving a copy of this, because you have to publish from the one that's named Tilson ATL. Flat. Like, it's just because the published service is going to get that name, and it's like, it's got to flow through. So anyway, you have this big long list of layers that are already in the 3GIS service. One thing, first of all, to mention here is that any new layers we add, we have to add at the bottom of the list. Now, it's a pain, but you just have to get creative with your symbology. If you're going to have lines that overlap, you got to make the bottom one thicker. In future releases of 3GIS, we hope to have this requirement taken away. It was promised in the last release and didn't happen. So that's one thing. The other thing is every time you make a layer that's new, there's a couple of things to check about it. And I'm going to assume, let's see if that layer, that was a big layer, so it might not have finished loading. It did. Great. So now if I go into Tilson ATL and I go in the telecom folder, my util layer, water, Henry County is there, and I can drag it to the bottom of the list over here. And
so you're creating like just a brand new feature class.
Yes. Yeah. So rather than combining them, maybe.
Rather than like what I was doing, loading for like Megan the plot grids.
Yes. No, yeah.
So that's the other. Okay.
2 ways to load data in here. Yeah, we'll go over that one too, because we do that for. This way is the way when you have like. Anyway, we'll get to that. Yeah. So I'm just gonna make the water mains like a blue, super light blue here, or super thin blue. A lot of times when I make symbols for 3GIS, I just save them, and but now they're in my big long list of saved lines. We should share styles at some point, but it's a future. So the first thing to do is change the name here to take off tilson.ste. The second thing to do is just to mention this, right? So this layer list is going to get sorted alphabetically in 3GIS. And it's also going to get sorted by uppercase and lowercase. And I think lowercase shows up first alphabetically, a full list, and then uppercase shows up next in a full list alphabetically, which you can use, if you know that, to organize your layer list, which I'll show you in 3GIS once we publish it, because that layer box is a little difficult to scroll through. So in the future, we could actually be more intelligent about how we do it. So one of the other things to check is if you go into the properties of this layer, I just double click on the layer name, and you go to fields. You have to make sure that shape, ST length, or ST area, or all these database fields are at the bottom of this list, literally. So like if shape was up here in this, I would need to drag it down to be one of the bottom things in that list. Again, one of the more random things about 3GIS, but it's just it was a hard lesson to learn, but we got it, I think. If you ever notice that when you're editing and you edit something and then the values go away in 3GIS, that's the symptom of that it's not at the bottom of the list. Okay, great. So I have my new layer in here. And I usually would turn it off to publish it, because then when they open the map for the first time, it just won't be on. You know, the extent that you have open when you publish this is going to be the extent that a person that opens it for the first time sees. So I just generally zoom into either the area that they're definitely working on now, or you know, the whole project. Great. So then I would save that, but then I would also save a copy of that again. I'm pretty big on just saving copies of these things because you never know. And then if you've already done something, you might put like a _1 after it. Okay, so now to actually publish this thing, you make sure it's saved. File, we'll have a share as option, and then if you go to share as a service, what that means is we're going to publish this service out to the web. So going to create a new REST endpoint for all this stuff that 3JS is then going to go grab. And we're going to say overwrite an existing service because Atlanta already exists. And we're going to then pick it, right? If this wasn't highlighted, we would click on Tilson ATL as it's the same name as that MXD was previously. Another reason why you always want to have the same name. You can see this Tilson LAX LLD, this date thing going on here, that's a problem, and the reason is because of the naming of things, but anyway. So you click on Tilson ATL, and you go to continue. And then from this menu, all of these parameters should already be set up for you because the MXD kind of knows what it did last time. So you shouldn't have to do much of this. But let me just to mention, I guess one of the things you want to make sure is that this bottom box, no proxy STD, is checked, and then nothing else is checked except for mapping. And that's really the only thing I ever know is going to really make a difference. There's other settings in there that you could set that don't worry about them. So the first thing to do is hit analyze, and this will check to make sure it's like publishable. You're going to get errors in here that we get every time, and these are okay. So annotation layer may use inline fonts. That's okay. It's a medium issue. It's not, you know, if you get a red issue, it's going to be like, you're going to know you got to go fix something, and it should give you some information about what you need to fix. So missing tags, that's fine. That just, you know, they want you to put tags in. You know, we could talk about all these, but you know, one that's interesting is layer draws at all scale ranges. Like for a web map, that's actually a legitimate concern that would actually help our server performance if we cut that down and we said you got to be zoomed in real far before all this data comes up, because every time somebody looks at the whole map, it's pulling every feature from the database, and that's all web traffic that's like killing us right now. So the way you might mitigate that would be to set scale ranges on this stuff so it doesn't show up. But so once I check it and there's no red errors, I can just hit publish.
Does that
Should I not have done that?
You should have gotten everyone out of Atlanta before. Let's see who's in Atlanta. So edit the video to back up.
Darn it.
But that layer drawing at all scale ranges, can you tell which particular layer it is, or does that?
Yes, if you click the little plus next to it, it will tell you all of them.
Okay.
No one's in Atlanta.
Yes.
Wow.
Unreal.
Lucky.
So, good lesson for the video, right? So we are moving to, we're in a bit of a, it can be dangerous to publish these things, right? So one thing that'll happen is if somebody's in the middle of editing something and they haven't committed their edits in 3JS, it will get wiped out. Which that's why when we tell people how to use 3JS, we say save your edits often, all the time. You can't really use the undo button in 3JS if you're saving your edits all the time, but you won't lose anything, you know, so it's a balance. Anyway, we're going to try to publish on off hours, so after 5, before 9, for the market you're working in, remember time zones.
It does also put a load on the entire web server, so if the server's kind of maxed, you know, a market that you're not publishing could still be affected.
Yeah, because they're all running off the same machine, so you could, send it down with this.
Off hours may end up being, 7 or 8.
Yeah, and sometimes, a lot of times it'll go down, it'll come back up after 5 minutes, but you'll get a lot of angry emails in those 5 minutes, and then just remind people to keep checking. So that's a basic process. Now, what happens is after you publish this, you have the website right now you log into for 3GIS, and the thing is, people have to the website remembers all this stuff about how you had your settings in there. So the problem is it doesn't go out and refresh the cache, right? Refresh the service it's looking at. So you got to go into the website now, and if you want to test it, right? Like which we always want to test these things when we publish them. You would go to the service, which I have the Atlanta service here, and you would type services at the end of that URL and hit enter. And this will bring you to the page where you can clear your personal web browser's cache. So you can do clear map, which is one thing. And then the other thing to do is clear your browsing history. So if you go in Chrome, and we recommend you use Chrome for this stuff. So we basically use Chrome for everything. So click on these 3 little dots up here, go to history, and then go to the history button here, and then do clear browsing data over here. And then I just remove everything. It's kind of a pain sometimes, personally, but like whatever. Hit clear data. And so those are the 2 things. You go to the services page and you reset your cache, and then you clear your history. Sometimes you have to do all that twice, which is counterintuitive, but you just do. So I always recommend before I start trying to fix something for someone, I always ask them, can you just try it one more time? And then 90% of the time, it fixes it on the second try. So then I'm going to log into Atlanta. And this is the worst part about testing, is opening it again and again, because all this takes time. So once you get to this page, I don't know, John, if you've seen this before, you have all these different websites. So you can see up here, ATL Tilson .3GIS Live is the website for Atlanta. But you're going to always have this same map server selection box. You just have to know, okay, I'm in the Atlanta website, which you can check up on the top left. And then you need to pick the Atlanta drop-down option. And then you need to click on the Atlanta button. There shouldn't be more than one button there. At one point, there was for other reasons, but there shouldn't be any more. So it should just be website, drop-down menu, button, basically. Then you gotta wait a second. So this is what I mean. So right now, it's killing our web server, right? Because it's pulling in all of the visible data at this scale. Which, look at that. That's a lot of stuff that it just pulled. I'm thinking that's a major thing we should switch. That's a great job. But it's like everything. So anyway, once you load this, you can go to this ball up here, table of contents, and you can see if you click on this layer settings for the Atlanta/Tilson, this is your list of all the things that are in the table of contents from ArcMap. Listed, as you can see, capitalized things, I guess, go first, and then there's the lowercase things, right? So this is bad, it's just bad naming on our part. Oh, do not change the names of anything, though, in ArcMap, ever. For when you're publishing services, once it gets published once with a name, you got to be pretty sure that you got it right, because you cannot change that again. And again, that's something that we hope to change in the future. But always just add it to the bottom of the list. Have a lot of acceptance about how it is above that, because it's going to be like that forever. And just know that if people tell you it doesn't make sense, say, in a couple of days you'll forget it was ever any different, right? That's the other problem, is every time you change something, you have to train everybody again. But hopefully for Miami, we can make it really make sense.
And that's what you're just talking about, like for Miami, what's gonna be different is changing it so that not all this stuff shows up, only like say the areas and the fiber cables show up.
Exactly.
Okay.
Yep, that would be a perfect scenario of things that they might want to see. And
But
then
you're not changing Atlanta right now.
no,
No,
yeah,
'cause we're almost done.
yes,
Okay.
yeah, and you can see like I think I have some scale dependency set up. Yeah, so when you get
Yeah.
here, all that stuff, other stuff turns on, and then when you zoom way far out, nothing's on.
Right.
It's just that this startup page,
Ooh.
nothing's on. Everything in the whole darn country is on. So this is it's exciting to have a GIS team to be able to hit some of these things. So okay, so we're looking at this layer list, right? So then I scroll to the bottom, and the U's in the capitalized letter category is there. You can see it came in selectable, which is an option in ArcMap. If you had made it not selectable in ArcMap and then published it, it would have been unchecked in here. Visible, it's visible at all scales, which is probably a bad thing for this water main data because there's no reason why anybody would want to look at it this far away. But we can at least see that it loaded, and it's all good. The cool thing now is that anybody using FreeJS can select that data and download it into a CAD drawing as a shapefile. We could directly connect the CAD to it at some point in the future. We're hoping to do that. And you can click on a line and see all the information about it. But I think I'm going to end the video there because that's basically that's as far as I would take it. I'd be like, your layer's in there, person that asked for it. And
Questions before we end the video?
yeah, good.
I think I'm good. I think once I do it, go through the process, I'll have questions.
Yeah. John, did edit. Well,
The only thing I would add to that is that was a very exact set of steps, and it has to be because things go wrong and then everything stops working.
right.
You know, having the layer at the bottom is very important. Having the shape fields at the bottom is very important because it just stops everything else from working.
Right.
It's kind of you have to do it exactly this way, otherwise everyone's just is unable to function.
Yeah. So it's like the M and Z values in the properties fields, the shape at the bottom, and then when you bring it in, it has to be at the very bottom.
Yeah.
Those are like the three.
Those are two major data load and MXD setup steps for sure.
Okay.
But the naming and the layer order is just as important.
Oh yeah, the naming. Yeah, that's the thing I think.
And it's like it's so instinctual for me to just fix that layer list, the order and the names of things, and it's just like I gotta fight that because I have to accept that we didn't know. I think that will change. The latest on that was like we can change the layer order. It's just the BOM won't work if we change the layer order, which is the bill of materials, which we don't use in one fiber projects. But if we ever want to use it in the future,
Right.
we cannot change it now. So it's kind of an interesting thing. Like, do we want to just say? Well, we'll wait till 3JS actually gets their act together on that one. Hopefully, the service pack one that Dan was just talking about, he's going to talk to Kayla about it. I'm hoping that that's in there, although I didn't push for it to be in there, because it's fine. Like basically, once these systems get up and running and people learn them, the way that how to do things spreads like wildfire. So you don't really have to, it's a nice to have, really, to make it perfect. But yeah, cool.
So for Miami though, what is the status? Can I ask what the status of 3JS is? Is